I see a lot of a technique on the catwalks at the moment called Intarsia. What's that?
That's a form of colour knitting, and it covers a great deal of different patterns. It's anywhere where we're changing from a block of one colour to another. So it could be a simple slope like here. It can be quite commonly a patch of colour within a background colour. These are kind of simple geometric shapes, but this is also Intarsia here. So we've got
Oh, that's lovely.
a floral motif and these abstract leaves. So you've got your background colour, and then this green is worked with one ball of yarn. The blue is another ball of yarn, and the green is another ball of yarn again. So you've got these little balls of yarn to make up your motifs.
So some of the picture sweaters from the 80s, they would have all been Intarsia.
They were Intarsia. Those are really common at the time. Those were all done in Intarsia. For example, one I did, and it took me forever, was the teddy bear sweater. And I think it had 21 colours in it.
Oh gosh.
And across a row, you might have had 6, 7, 8 colours. So you were doing a little bit here, a little bit here, and so on. This was not the sort of knitting you could shove in a bag and take anywhere. You had to have it on the sofa and have it carefully arranged so you knew what colours you were doing.
Yeah.
And they're all worked, you would normally work them from a chart. So you'd see a grid where a square is a stitch, and it'll be marked in whichever colour you're meant to be working it in. So there are a couple of things to look out for, and they're mainly around how we get from one colour to the other. So I thought I'd start with this, an example of this simple slope. So when we've got 2 blocks of colour, it's relatively simple, except where we're changing colours. So I'm just going to knit across my green here. Very quickly, until I get an hour. So I've done all my green stitches. I know that to get the slope I need to do one more green. So I knit that, and now I'm ready to start my yellow. But on some patterns, especially if they have a straight line, you run the risk of there being a little gap here between your yellow and your green. So what you want to do is take your green, and I'm just scooping, bringing it down, and then I'm getting my yellow, and I'm scooping up the green and coming round to make my first stitch. So if I turn it over, the 2 yarns are interlinked, but it's only one twist.
Oh, could you show that again?
I'll come back and I'll show it again.
Yeah.
So I was working in my green, so I've got that hanging down. I'm getting my yellow, because that's what I need to start next, and I'm using my yellow to scoop up my green.
Right.
And then I'm making my stitch.
Oh, because I've just twisted them round before. That's a lot better,
well, if you
isn't it?
if you think of it as a scoop,
yes,
you're just getting one twist. Because where you run the risk is if you do extra twists. And when I started in Intarsia, it's when I did all the time, and I used to get these little lumps, or this stitch would pull, and because it would be because I had 2 or 3 twists there, my stitches weren't flattening out because there was this whole lump of a knot between these 2 stitches. So you need to be very careful and just do one twist. Now we're going to go back along the purl side. So we're just doing the same thing again. So knitting across with our yellow.
So the number of stitches will be in your chart, won't it?
Yes,
so
it will. You have a chart, so it'll tell you exactly how many. So this time I know I need to knit this, purl this one in green. So we're going to do our twist again. And this time I'm going to get the green, I'm going to bring it under the yellow and up to make my stitch. And then I can just purl on. And again you'll see the 2 stitches, the 2 yarns are interlocked behind the stitch, but they're not twisted more than once, so they're just pulling the 2 stitches slightly together without forming a lump. And if you look down below, you can see how they cross over each time.
Very neat.
It is easier when you're doing a slope. If you look on the square we did earlier, it's a little bit harder, because if you didn't do the link, this green bit would be completely separate to the 2 yellow sides.
Yeah.
And I made a little mistake here. You can see here I didn't get my tension right, so my green is popping to the front. So sometimes you need to look and be very careful not to pull too tight, or what I did here, I left my twist too loose. So I have a little loose bit here. And I left that just to show you what can go wrong. But very rarely do you do something that is completely straight lines like that. Because as soon as you have anything that has an edge, you've got the extra advantage of a little zigzag, which helps hold all your knitting together.
So have you got any hints and tips of how to keep your yarn from getting tangled?
Well, you can do things like roll them off into small balls,
Right.
so that they're very easy to untangle from each other. I wouldn't do Intarsia from your main ball of yarn, because you're going to end up with large amounts of yarn to cross over and uncross.
Okay.
But I also have these rather marvellous bobbins.
Oh, what are they?
Now these I found from a jeweller friend who does braided bracelets and kumihimo and things like that. And they're very clever. You just
Oh yes, I see.
wind your yarn around, keep winding and winding till you've got enough. And then I'll show you with one that's full. So they snap back and forth.
And the yarn pulls off easily?
Yes, so there you've got all your yarn wound down. If you snap your edge over, it stops it untangling, and then you just unwind
that's cool.
enough you need for your row or two of your Intarsia motif.
That's so neat.
And if they start to get crossed over, you only have a small amount of yarn that can possibly get tangled up. And I find that's really the best way of doing it now. And if you look on eBay and just look for kumihimo bobbins and that sort of thing, you'll find these little plastic bobbins, and they've made such a difference to doing it.